This video was brought to you by Brilliant, and the first 200 people to use the link below will get 20% off an annual premium subscription. For the last few months, both Finland and Sweden have been flirting with NATO membership. Polling has found growing support for NATO accession within both countries, and leading politicians have been emphasising their sovereign right to join the alliance. Then, over the weekend, it was finally confirmed that both countries would indeed be joining, with both announcing the move on Sunday. So in this video, we're going to be taking a look at the developments over the last few days, what happens next, and how Russia might respond. So, before we get into this weekend's developments, a bit of context. Historically, Sweden and Finland have both been doggedly neutral countries when it comes to military interventions, and as such, neither country is a member of NATO, nor has even really considered it. But Putin's invasion of Ukraine has made both countries reconsider their military neutrality, and things have changed quickly too. Because prior to the invasion, public support for NATO accession in both countries was well below 50%. In Sweden, it was between 30 and 35%, while in Finland, it was between 25 and 30%. Since the invasion, though, public support has steadily been ticking up. The most recent polling from April found that 57% of Swedes support NATO accession, with just 21% against, while more recent polling from May found that an impressive 76% of Finns backed NATO accession, with just 12% against. And, perhaps unsurprisingly, Nordic politicians have mirrored their electorate. Last month, the Sweden Democrats said that they would support NATO membership, creating a pro-NATO majority in the Swedish parliament. Somewhat predictably, though, Russia responded to this mere speculation by threatening both countries. In February, Russia's foreign ministry spokeswoman warned of, quote, military and political consequences if the countries joined the bloc. And in April, a Kremlin spokesman warned that if Sweden or Finland joined NATO, Russia would have to, quote, rebalance the situation, possibly by deploying nuclear weapons in the Kaliningrad Oblast. And things have got more serious too, with Russia really upping the ante over the last few weeks, with brief incursions from Russian military planes into both Swedish and Finnish airspace. As you'd expect though, this hasn't really helped Putin's case, and has only made both countries keener on NATO membership. Finland's president said that the country needed to apply to NATO, quote, without delay, and on Sunday the Finnish government did exactly that, formally announcing that they'd be joining NATO. The very same day, the ruling Swedish Social Democratic Party staged a dramatic U-turn, with their leader and Swedish Prime Minister announced that her party supported membership, reversing their decades-long policy of neutrality. Again, as you might expect, Russia responded with more threats. Russian Senator Viktor Bondarev said that Russia would increase its troop presence on the Russo-Finnish border, rehashing a similar threat made by Putin in 2016. Anyway, the point is that both countries have announced their intention to apply for NATO membership, but what happens now? Well, joining the alliance is pretty easy in principle. According to Article 10 of NATO's founding treaty, membership is available to, quote, any European state that will, quote, contribute to the security of the North Atlantic area, as long as the state can secure unanimity among pre-existing NATO members. There are some other unofficial conditions, though, which were set out in a NATO policy document from 1995 called the Study on NATO Enlargement, and these conditions include a functioning democratic political system based on a market economy, the fair treatment of minorities, a commitment to the peaceful resolution of conflicts, the ability and willingness to make a military contribution to NATO, and civilian control over military forces. Clearly, though, both Finland and Sweden are European states that meet these criteria, and they can also both contribute to NATO's security, as required by Article 10, which is why both were invited to take part in NATO's Partnership for Peace program all the way back in 1994. And while Sweden might have to up its current defense spending, which sits at about 13% of their GDP, Finland actually has one of the most impressive militaries in Europe, thanks to compulsory enlistment, Finland has an estimated 900,000 reserve personnel out of a population of 5.5 million, with an active fighting force of about 22,000. While Finland only spends about 1.5% of its GDP on defense, it does have one of the strongest artillery systems in Europe and an impressive air force made up of nearly 160 aircraft. Finland would also bring NATO closer to the Kola Peninsula, home of much of Russia's western military, including a fleet of nuclear-armed submarines, which makes their accession only more appealing to other NATO members. All of this means that the final hurdle for Swedish and Finnish accession is unanimity amongst current NATO members, and this could be a little difficult. While the vast majority of NATO is in favour of Nordic accession, Turkey and Croatia have expressed some resistance. Erdogan said on Friday that they were not positive about Sweden and Finland joining NATO, because in his words, Scandinavian countries are guest houses for terrorist organisations. Then on Sunday, Turkey's foreign minister went on further, accusing Sweden and Finland of supporting terrorists and demanding that they lift export bans on Turkey. Here, the foreign minister seems to be referring to the fact that both Finland and Sweden have Kurdish diasporas, and that Sweden has 6 Kurdish MPs. For those of you who don't know, for nearly 4 decades, Turkey has been waging an on-and-off war against the Kurdistan Workers' Party, otherwise known as the PKK, although it is also worth saying that there's no evidence to suggest that either Swedish or Finnish diasporas have any links to the PKK. Similarly, last month, the Croatian president said that Croatia would veto any NATO enlargement as long as neighbouring Bosnia and Herzegovina does not change its electoral law, which many Croatian politicians believe unfairly advantages ethnic Bosniaks at the expense of ethnic Croats. Now, both of these might feel like weird objections, but fortunately for Sweden and Finland, both Turkey and Croatia have backtracked somewhat already. On Saturday, a spokesman for the Turkish government clarified that Turkey wouldn't necessarily veto Swedish and Finnish accession. And Croatia's foreign minister last month came out and said that after talks with both countries, Finland and Sweden have Croatia's, quote, undoubted and unreserved support. So, all in all, it looks like both countries are set to be swiftly accepted into NATO. As a final thing, obviously this is bad news for Putin militarily, but it's also bad news for him politically. That's because Putin's trying to justify his war to the international community by claiming that NATO is actively and aggressively expanding towards Russia's borders. A narrative which is often propagated by Russian and Chinese state media, as well as by Putin's supporters around the world. But Finland and Sweden's accession does undermine this narrative, because, well, obviously Finland and Sweden are joining in response to Russian aggression, not out of some sort of anti-Russian Western imperialism. At the moment then, it looks like NATO has only expanded to Russia's borders because the countries on Russia's borders are worried about what Russia might do next. In other words, countries seek to join NATO because they are threatened by Russia, not because they want to antagonize it. Brilliant is an online STEM learning platform that teaches you everything you need to know to better understand the modern world. Baffled by investment and finance? Well, they've got courses on maths and quantitative finance. Confused by coding? Well, they've got everything from the very basics right through to quantum computing. Unclear why you're losing millions? Well, there's no guarantee that Brilliant can help with that, but they do have courses on cryptocurrency and gambling. You get the point. Everything you want to learn about STEM is covered by Brilliant. And the best thing is that all of their courses are designed by award-winning instructors and built upon the principle of active learning. So you're gaining STEM knowledge by actually doing it. So if you want to improve with STEM, then you can sign up to Brilliant at brilliant.org/TLDREU. And the first 200 people to do so will get 20% off an annual premium subscription. Thanks for supporting the channel.